Hey, Jim Wolf here, and welcome to 5 Fulfilling Success Secrets. I'm going to share 3 fulfilling success paradigms and 2 fulfilling success paradoxes with you that are going to help you feel both successful and fulfilled. Because I don't want you to just be successful and rack up achievements and never feel genuinely good about yourself. And if you're a good person, I also want you to feel fulfilled and go after your true desires, because that's the best thing for everybody. And we're going to see that in the last paradox. So let's begin. Number 1, there are 2 frames or paradigms that you can approach the world from, and I'm going to present both of them to you. And then you can decide which one will lead to fulfilling success and which one won't. So the first one is trying to get versus attracting. And you could also call this qualifying. And you could call this sharing real value. So these are 2 possible frames that you can approach the world from. And when you're trying to get, you need external things to help you feel fulfilled and successful. And so you really need outcomes to happen. And the problem with that is that you actually have no control over any outcomes that are going to happen. And really, there's only one outcome in life, and that's death. And I'm not going to get too morbid or go really deep into that, and I'm not trying to be negative, but you can't control any outcomes anyway, and there really are no outcomes except for one. And none of us can escape it as far as I know. And so I'm not sure if this is a really strong way to live. And then there's attracting. And attracting means being who you really are, pursuing your true desires, but remembering that they're not needs, and sharing your real value with the world. So those are 2 ways that you can approach life. And I think attracting is much stronger. It's much more real. It's much more authentic. It's much more fulfilling. And so if you're going after the things that you really desire, that's going to lead to fulfilling success as long as your desires don't become needs. Because all we really need is just food and water and shelter, etc. So if there's something more that you want, it's good to pursue that as long as you remember that you can't control the outcome and that it's not a need. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this. So qualifying versus sharing real value. So let's say you're having a conversation with someone. It can be as simple as that. If you're in a conversation with someone, you might be qualifying if you're trying to get that person to like you, or that person to think that you're cool, or whatever it is. And so when you're in a conversation, do you one-up people's stories? Do you talk about things that are external to you to make yourself sound really cool? Do you talk about the car you just bought? Do you talk about your awesome vacation in a way that's trying to get their approval? Do you put someone down? Those are all just you trying to get something external to fill that internal void that you have. Instead of just realizing that you are whole and complete right now, there is nothing wrong with you, there's nothing more that you need unless you haven't eaten for a couple of days, and you are whole and complete and awesome exactly as you are right now, regardless of the feedback that you're getting from the world. And ironically, when you live this way, when you don't need positive feedback from the world to feel good about yourself, you actually get more positive feedback from the world generally. Maybe not short term, but over the long term, you tend to get more of it, which is really interesting because now you don't actually need it. And that's what attracting means. And you kind of know how this works, right? I mean, like, we kind of know that once you don't need something, that's when you get it. Well, that can be a way of life. So unless you're really hungry or thirsty or you don't have shelter, everything else is just a want. It's a desire. And again, it's good to pursue that. Half of happiness is the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of your desires. And that's a really good thing. But remember, those aren't needs. And so I think to have fulfilling success, we need to be attracting and sharing real value instead of qualifying. So if we go back to that conversation, instead of trying to get that person to like you in some way or another or think you're cool, you could share real value with them. You could share stories about things that were impactful to you and how they made you feel. And even more impressively, you could really listen to that person. If you don't need that person to think you're cool, or you don't need their approval, and you're not needing to be understood and needing to connect and trying to get something, you can listen to them and really listen to them and really appreciate that other person and be comfortable with their differences and really take in who they are and what they're saying at a deeper level. And you know what's interesting? The less you say in that conversation, the more they're probably going to like you. When they're sharing things about themselves, and that's you sharing real value with them by listening, they're going to feel closer to you. They're going to feel more connected to you. And they're going to feel validated by you. And ironically, that is going to attract that person to you. So when you stop trying to get things, they start coming to you. Another way this plays out is just in the pursuit of success, right? A lot of us pursue success because we're trying to get wealth, or we're trying to get something that we're lacking inside. And I don't think that's a very fulfilling way to live. I think a better way to go about pursuing your desires is to attract the things that you want. So instead of chasing wealth, for example, which is a construct, it doesn't actually exist, because when do you become wealthy? Have you ever answered that question? When are you a wealthy person? Is it when you have $2 million? Is it when you have $1 billion? How do you know when you're wealthy? It's just a construct. Wealth is a creation of your own mind. Always. No matter how much money or stuff or things you have, the amount that you require to feel wealthy is up to you. And the truth is, you already are wealthy. If you're listening to this video right now, you have the resources to do that, which makes you wealthy. It probably means you had enough to eat today. There's a lot of people that don't have that. So I would be willing to bet that in some way, you are wealthy already, and when you adopt that mindset, you start to attract more of that. So again, it's that appreciating what you have and going after your desires. Those things are not mutually exclusive. And so when you start sharing real value and attracting, and stop being needy and stop trying to get things and just share yourself with the world, that's when you start to get everything. That's when you start to achieve this fulfilling version of success that I'm talking about. Number 2, investing versus consuming. Investing versus consuming. And this applies to a lot of different things in your life, but let's start with just you, yourself. Do you treat yourself as an investment? Do you invest in yourself? Or do you treat yourself as a disposable consumer good? As a short-term commodity? How do you view yourself? Are you an investor in yourself, or do you consume yourself? Do you eat healthy food because it affects how you feel in 4 hours, or do you eat what feels really good right now? If you saw yourself as your most important investment, how would you treat yourself? There might be some things that you'd want to change. And so looking at yourself as an investment instead of a consumer good is a way that you can start treating yourself better in a real way. It gives you a really good mind frame for treating yourself the way that you deserve to be treated, because you are your most important investment. If you don't invest in yourself, you can't help anyone else. And then you can also apply this paradigm to the rest of your life. This is a success paradigm for the most part, but it's also a fulfilling success paradigm, right? So if you're investing versus consuming, you're going to put money in investments instead of buying a lot of stuff. You're supporting your future self. You're looking at yourself holistically. You're looking at the whole picture. You're looking at the end of your life, and you want that person to be proud of you instead of looking at what's happening right now in this moment only. And you don't care about the future. So the more that you think of yourself as your most important investment, the better you're going to treat yourself, the more success you're going to have, and the more fulfilled you're going to feel. Number 3, willpower versus habit power. It seems like in Western culture, we're addicted to willpower. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's kind of the motto of Western culture. And I'm not completely against that way of thinking. I think it's really good to be motivated to live your best life and to achieve real meaningful success. So I don't think this is completely a bad thing, but we vastly overestimate the amount of willpower we have. The person with the most willpower in the world doesn't have enough willpower to do everything that they want to do in their life. It's just not possible to have enough willpower to become your best self and to live your ideal life. All you need is enough willpower to form the habits that you need to support your ideal self and your ideal life. So willpower is just there, for the most part, to create habits and to get you over the hump in those rare big situations where you might need some, like a big job interview or those one-off events that you might need a little extra energy for. So that's what willpower is for. It's a very weak lever for living your ideal life. A really powerful lever is the habits that you have set up. That's why so many really ultra successful and also fulfilled people have a daily or at least a morning routine that they follow. Because it's those programs that are running in your subconscious every single day, those things that you do every single day that make you who you are and that define the life that you live. And so I suggest changing your focus from having enough willpower, which is impossible, to having enough habit power. And one example of this is the way most of us approach health and fitness. The common way to approach health and fitness out there in Western society, I think, is we're going to will it out. We're going to go on this diet and we're going to stick to it, and I'm just going to have enough willpower to do it. And I can do it. Yeah, I am motivated. And we have this huge penchant to think that motivation is going to be enough. And it is for a couple of days or a couple of weeks or maybe even a couple of months if you have a lot more willpower than most people. And that's great. But most New Year's resolutions fail. Most diets fail. And that's because we haven't built up the habits that are going to support us living that way over the long term. To change your life, you don't need willpower. You need to change your habits. And you need to change your self-image, the way that you see yourself. If you see yourself as an unhealthy person and you go on a diet using willpower, you're just an unhealthy person who's on a diet now for a second. And you're going to go back to your former self-image as soon as this weak willpower disappears, which it will. But if you just start seeing yourself as a healthy person and start adjusting your habits a little bit at a time, just using a little bit of willpower, then you're going to become that healthy person that you want to become. You're going to eat healthier over time. You're going to work out more over time. But this isn't as sexy as willpower. But I don't care about sexiness. I care about fulfilling success. I want to actually be healthy and fit. I don't want to have the thought of making myself healthy and fit by some kind of super powerful magical effort that I put in. No. I just want to be that fit person. So for me, for example, I really wanted to start looking at the way I was eating. And I didn't just change my entire diet all at once. I started out with just fixing my breakfast. And I started eating the same thing for breakfast every day for about 60 days. And now it's just a habit for me. It's just like brushing my teeth. And then I moved on to my lunch. And now I eat the same amazing thing for lunch every single day. And now it's just who I am. It's just what I do. So focus on one thing at a time and use willpower just to build the habits that you need to live your ideal life and to achieve fulfilling success. And stop depending on willpower. Nobody has enough of this. It's all about using this to develop habits. And now let's get into the 2 fulfilling success paradoxes I want to share with you today. The first one is product and packaging. In the version of paradox that we're talking about today, the definition that I'm using is 2 things that seem like they're mutually exclusive most of the time, just at face value, but they're actually not. These things are compatible, they're not mutually exclusive. So that's the definition of paradox that I'm using. So product and packaging. Usually when people are improving themselves or developing themselves, whether they're consciously doing it or not, they're either working on the product or they're working on the packaging. So they're getting plastic surgery, or they're working out really hard, or they're buying fancy clothes and a nice car. Or they're working on themselves. They're working on that internal part of them, the real part of them that we think of. And most people think that these things are mutually exclusive. You're either kind of fake or you're real. But I don't see it that way. I see these things as compatible and 2 parts of the same cycle. What you don't want is beautiful packaging and no content inside. You don't want to look really good, but be an empty suit. But on the other hand, if you are really awesome, if you are developing yourself, and you don't communicate that to the external environment and ultimately back to yourself, then you're missing half of this feedback loop. And it's going to stunt this growth a little bit. And you know this. Aren't there outfits that you wear that make you feel more confident in a genuine way? Don't you feel better when you've been working out and you look good? We know this. But we like to focus on one or the other based on our personality. And I'd just like to suggest that we work on both who we are and the way we present ourselves as part of the same cycle. It's important to write a good book and to have a good cover, because people do judge books by their covers. And that's not right or wrong or good or bad, it just is. And so let's make sure that our cover matches the content. And I think you're a really awesome person, and I think you deserve to have a beautiful cover. So let's work on both of these things in tandem. And then the last paradox I want to share with you is being ambitious and pro-social. Being ambitious and pro-social. And I actually made a whole YouTube video about this. You might have seen it. I talk about the person who's ambitious and pro-social as a value warrior. And so you might have already seen that, but if not, I'm going to talk about it a little bit right now. So most people think that you're either ambitious or pro-social. And I think people who are ultra ambitious, sometimes they don't necessarily think about the needs and wants of other people, and they might not care about that. And I think some people who are really caring and concerned about the world and other people sometimes just aren't very ambitious. And those two people might be afraid of the other word. But I think something magical happens when we put these two things together. Start thinking about some of your heroes. I bet a lot of them were both ambitious and pro-social. Dr. Martin Luther King comes to mind. There were a lot of people who cared about civil rights, but he was also ambitious enough to be the leader of that movement. And if you're a really good person, I want you to be more ambitious, because there's already enough ambitious people out there that don't care about anyone else. You know, Hitler is never going to watch a training like this and work on himself. He's not going to say something like, oh, you know what, I should care about the entire world a little bit more. I'm causing a lot of issues right now. Maybe I should change myself. That's probably not going to happen. So the only way to combat people who are ambitious and don't care about anyone, like Bernie Madoff and Hitler and Stalin and people like that, is for people who do care to increase their ambition a little bit. It's okay. If you are a good person, your ambition is helpful to the world. So I would encourage you to be a value warrior, be both ambitious and pro-social. And if you're a really good, caring person, increase that ambition a little bit. Make a real difference in the world. That's what we're here for. And so those are the 5 fulfilling success secrets I wanted to share with you today. And I hope that gave you a little bit of insight into how to achieve this thing I call fulfilling success, which is a combination of feeling really genuinely good about yourself, appreciating what you already have, showing gratitude, and also pursuing your true desires, expressing your true self, and living the life that you really want to live. And I think you can do both at the same time. And again, I hope this training gave you a good head start on doing that from here forward. And if you want to learn how to truly stop qualifying and start sharing real value, and you want to start seeing your real value and growing that and sharing that more and more with the world over time, and if you want to kick your insecurities out and finally feel secure and know what that means, check out my premium program called the Validation Switch. Inside the Validation Switch, I'm going to show you how to finally be genuinely secure. And being secure isn't something magical. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that you can definitely learn. And I'm going to show you how to do that inside the Validation Switch. So click the link below and you'll be taken to your Validation Switch private discount page. I'm Jim Wolf, and I'll see you later.